So let's take a look at building queries using these operations, right? Also, these queries are very, very important in that, I mean, we'll take a look at SQL, right? Now, SQL is pseudo English, right, where it allows you to type this high-level string, right, that you can almost read it as proper English. But obviously, this is not what the database actually performs. The database needs to parse the string and break it up into actual operations that the database is gonna make. Right? It needs to break out your English text into actual performing of these operations, right? And these operations usually are low level, much lower level operations that are actually look very, very similar to what this algebra looks like. These operations where you select, you do projections, you do these joins, anti-joins, and whatnot. Okay, so that's the usefulness of this. So here's a simple query, and when we do a select, and the syntax is that you need to tell me on what data set are you operating on, presumably the set of all students, and then the predicate. So it takes the first argument is the data set that you're operating on, the student set, and then the second argument is the predicate. So here's the in just plain all text, and here's the kind of like a mathematical syntax. We have sigma for select, and then underneath is the predicate, and then operation on that data set. Okay. Also notice that we are presumably storing the result of that query in a variable Q1, right? This syntax is going to allow us to reuse these results, right? Now that it's stored in Q1, presumably I can now use Q1 to build some other thing like a Q2 or Q3 and so on and so forth. Where they can all feed into each other, right? So let's look at another one. Students who graduated in 2004 with a major of 10 or 20. Right. So again, we're selecting out of the student set, and the predicate is that the graduation year is 2004, and the major ID is 10. So that one allows you to do just only major 10. But what if you want major 10 or 20, right? So you can combine the predicates with and, graduation year is 2004, and major ID is 10 or major ID is 20. So you can, these Boolean expressions can be as complicated as you want, right? Where you can also nest multiple selects, right? You can have an inner select that does the query of first retrieving the graduation year 2004, and that feeds into another select, right? That selects by the major ID, and this is very common. If you are doing a select statement on MySQL or whatever tool you use, right? You might ask it, give me the plan, meaning compile my query and tell me how you're going to perform my query, and it will tell you. Right? It says, well, first I'm going to select this, then I'm going to select that, then I'm going to do a projection, then I'm going to do a join, it'll tell you all the steps. Right? It'll look very, very similar to something like this, where the and, the way we perform the and, the way we're performing the and here is that first we're going to do a filter on the graduation year of 2004. Yes? Once we have the result of that, well, now I can do the filter on the second one. Right? I can now filter on major ID equal 10. Right? And the order in which these appear is also meaningful, right? What if there's a graduation years 2004 and there's thousands of students, right, that meet that, 10,000 students that meet that, right? And then when I iterate over it, looking for major ID 10, there's only a subset of those, it's a very small subset. What if it's backwards? What if I would have first filtered by major ID equal 10, and that would have been only 1,000 students that meet that, right? And then I look for the ones that meet 2004, right? So the order also matters, right? Where I could optimize my query by filtering first on one and then filtering on the other one, and not on. So the order might matter, right? And this we'll take a look at a little bit later towards the end on how to optimize these queries. That the order actually matters, so that instead of using this Boolean expression, you might say, well, what if I do the inner query first, and then that result I then feed it into another query, that does an outer query. See that? And I could force the order by doing first querying on the major ID and then the graduation year, or the graduation year and then the ID. I can force it by feeding one inside of the other. Make sense? Right? And this depends on my knowledge on how much data there is, how many records are there. I know that there's only 10 schools, right? But there's 40,000 students, right? So what do I filter first? Do I filter on the students and then the major, or first on the major and then the students, right? Again, knowing about how the data might drive your decision. Oftentimes, also we graph this in using a diagram with arrows saying how these data feeds into one. You're starting from data set, going into the different queries, and then the ultimate result. All right, we'll continue on Monday. Thank you.